Hello, welcome back to RetroBreak. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking all about the Vectrex, one of my favourite retro gaming systems. It was released in the UK in 1983, and for the time, the technology that comes in this thing is just incredible. As you can see, it's got its own built-in vector-based display, which is kind of hard to pick up on camera, but fingers crossed I've managed to get the settings right and you can actually see what some of the games are all about. So before I start the video proper, here's a little bit of background as to my experience with the Vectrex system. I played it, of course, at a lot of different gaming shows over the years, but I didn't actually get my own one until about 2014, I think, from Entertainment World in Birmingham. And since then I've built up quite a nice collection, so I thought today I'll go through my collection and share it with you guys. So without further ado, let's take a look at some of the games. I seem to have lost a few of them in the move to this new house, but I managed to find 3 of the games that I've got boxed. They are Space Wars, which of course is one of the very first computer games ever made, and this is a port of it to the Vectrex. A really good port actually, and this game is quite famous not only for being one of the first games ever, but for also being one of the first physics-based games. The game actually begins with a black hole in the middle of the screen, and your bullets actually curve around it, and the other ship spins around it as well. Basically, it's a 2-player game, or 1 player versus the computer, and you have to manage to blow the other ship up, which I haven't actually managed to do yet. I'm not very good at this game, but it is a really interesting bit of history, and it's really cool to actually have it. Anyway, the next game we're looking at is Chasm, which is the one that's playing down there, and I will also just mention that the games also come with their own overlays, and you put this over the screen and it kind of gives the illusion of the games running in colour. As you can see, it's all white there, but when you put this over it, there you go, it looks like it's got a little bit of colour, and it gives you a bit more information. Like usually at the bottom of these overlays it gives you the layout of the controls for the different games. This is a game that I don't quite understand, I have to be completely honest. The idea of the game, I think, is to get to the middle of the maze. So you can see on the map here there's a little dot in the centre, and I think you're supposed to get there, plant a bomb and then escape, but I'm not entirely sure because I haven't got that far in it. It seems to play something like Asteroids but more mission based. It seems like a cool game, so I'd definitely like to give it more of a try in the future. This one's Chasm. And the last boxed game that I've got here in this house is Scramble. And this is a really great arcade port of the game Scramble, which of course went on to become Gradius and Nemesis and all those amazing games. This is where it all began, and it's really impressive to see a side-scrolling shooting game playing on the Vectrex system. It really is a very good showcase for the system. This one was quite expensive as far as I know, but it's definitely worth the money. Really interesting and impressive game. Now for some of the games that I've got cart only. Let's start here with a game called Berserk, which of course is a very famous Atari game. Unfortunately, I don't really enjoy the game that much. It seems very slow paced, and there isn't really much to do. You just go from level to level, kill all the enemies, and then the screen goes blank and then you do it all again. Very simple game, but it does play quite well on the Vectrex, and it does look amazing of course thanks to the display technology. So the next one here, this game's called Spike, and this is a really interesting game. Not only is it one of the very first platforming games of all time, it's actually also one of the first to include digitised voice samples as well. Just take a look at this. The game itself is also quite fun. You basically have to press one button to move the ladder around, and you can jump and you can climb up and down the ladder, and you just need to find a key in each of the different stages and then get into the gate and finish that level. You can also kick in either direction by pressing one of the 2 buttons on the side. I'd highly recommend this game if you've got a Vectrex, and it's actually fairly cheap as well. It only cost me a tenner, so definitely recommend that one. The next one here, this one's called Bedlam, and this is my favourite game on the system. It kind of plays like Tempest, but instead of going around the outside of the tunnels, you're on the inside and you're actually shooting out, and basically enemies come from all different directions, and when you've killed all them, it generates a new level, which is a different layout, and then you do it all again. Really good for chasing high scores, this game, really enjoy it. The next one here, this one's called Starship. This is a really impressive game for the system, one of the very first into the screen flying games. I know it's kind of faked, but it does give the illusion of things coming out of the screen towards you. So this game here, Starship, really impressive, very fun to play actually, even to this day. Really recommend it if you've got a Vectrex. Now the next one here, this was the Vectrex's answer to Pac-Man. Unfortunately not as good as that. This one's called Clean Sweep, and the idea of the game is that you're trying to rob a bank, I think, and you walk around collecting the money and fill up a bag, and then you have to deposit the money in different parts of the level, and then when you've deposited the money, then you can eat the guards that are coming after you. So it's not quite like Pac-Man. It's kind of an interesting game, but not one of my favourites for the system. And as you can see here, I've just restarted the system and took the game out because the Vectrex actually comes with a game built in. It's called Mindstorm, and it's basically the Vectrex version of Asteroids, which was, of course, very, very popular at the time. And I'm sure having this game built into the system managed to sell a lot of units. It's a really, really good port of Asteroids. It plays really well, and it is definitely a reason to own the system. Sometimes I turn it on just to play a round or two of Mindstorm. It really is that good. So before I wrap this episode up, I just thought I'd take a little bit of time to talk about the system itself. So here's the controller. As you can see, you can either hold it in your hands like that, or you can put it down flat on the table. And it's got an analog stick here, and it's got 4 individual buttons. And the cool thing about this is the controller actually fits inside the system. So you can just do that, make sure all the wire's inside it, and then it actually just pushes up, and as you can see it just connects to the system like that. So that's really cool to be able to fold it away like that. And another interesting thing about the system itself, as you can see, of course I mentioned already that it has a really nice vector based display, which basically means that it draws the lines between the different dots on the screen, and they're actually being fired from the back of the system. And there's something really cool that you can do. There's a dial on the back, and if you turn that up, you can either make it fainter, or if you turn it up all the way, you can actually see how the vector lines join up with the dots, which I think is a really nice way of visualizing what actually happens with the system. Of course, it's not much good actually playing it like this because you can't really see very much, but it is a really interesting sort of look into how everything works. So I just thought I'd show that off to give you an idea of the sort of technology that the Vectrex is based on. I think it's really, really fascinating. So if I turn it round, come over here. There you go. So on the back of the system you can see there's this dial here, and when you turn this round, that adjusts the brightness of the screen. And it just uses an AC power cable which plugs straight into the back there. So thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comments some of your favourite games for the Vectrex. I really hope you enjoyed taking a look at the system. I know it's a fairly obscure system, and I'd definitely like to do some more of these kind of videos in the future. So thank you so much for watching. Please comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next week for another episode. Goodbye.